Ever catch yourself building a whole emotional world around someone you barely know? Not because you're irrational, not because you're dramatic, but because your brain is exhausted and looking for somewhere safer to go. The pressure of deadlines, endless scrolling, the background hum of the city, and suddenly, inside your head, you're somewhere else. A quiet cafe in Paris, a slow conversation, a person who somehow feels easy, warm, safe, like they just get you. That shift can feel strange, but it isn't random. The heavier reality feels, the brighter this inner world can become. Your brain was never designed to absorb this much noise without consequence. For a lot of people, modern life feels like a constant scan for the next demand, the next task, the next message, the next thing that needs something from you. Even when you look still on the outside, your nervous system may still be bracing. That kind of overload creates a quiet background tension, not a diagnosis, just the exhaustion of being mentally on for too long. And eventually, your brain does something very intelligent. It looks for relief. This is where limerence can begin. People often describe limerence as obsessive infatuation, but in the digital age, it often isn't about a real relationship. It's about the idea of a person, a face, a voice, a few photos, a short video, a fragment, and your mind builds the rest. Not because you're naive, because your nervous system is trying to create a space that feels emotionally easier to live in. When real life feels grey, pressured, or emotionally crowded, fantasy can feel like oxygen. Inside that fantasy, there are no chores, no mixed signals, no conflict, no pressure to perform, just connection without friction, acceptance without uncertainty, relief without risk. That's why it can feel so powerful. It isn't just attraction, it's regulation. Social media feeds this perfectly. You only need a small amount of material, and your brain fills in the emotional blanks. You create an avatar that fits your unmet needs with almost no resistance from reality. And that's the trap. The fantasy doesn't only comfort you, it quietly changes the contrast. Real life starts to look dull beside something designed by longing. Real people feel slower, messier, harder to reach. And when you come back from that internal world, reality can feel even more draining than it did before, like a sugar crash for the mind. But this doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your mind found a coping tool. Fantasizing is not a modern glitch, it's an old survival response. Your brain uses imagination to create distance from pressure when pressure starts to feel too constant. What's new is the environment. Now fantasy has endless raw material, faces, stories, fragments of intimacy, an infinite supply of people your mind can turn into emotional refuge. So no, this isn't a character flaw, and it isn't proof that you're broken. It may be a sign that reality has started to feel emotionally unlivable in the shape it's currently taking, and your inner world is trying to compensate. That's why awareness matters. Not because awareness makes the feeling disappear, but because it changes the meaning of the moment. Instead of judging yourself for drifting, you can notice what's happening. You can pause and think, oh, I'm disappearing into fantasy again. I must be more exhausted than I realised. That changes everything, because the fantasy stops being the enemy. It becomes information, a signal, a quiet message from your nervous system that says, I need rest, I need softness, I need something that feels safer than this. And sometimes that's the real insight. The fantasy was never the whole story. The deeper story was fatigue. So the next time your mind slips away into someone unreal, don't start with shame. Start with a better question. What part of me feels too tired? to stay fully here right now? Sometimes the fantasy isn't the problem. Sometimes it's the evidence that your system needs real rest more than another beautiful story.